you're a sky, 'cause you're a sky full of stars. I'm gonna give.
So welcome back at the end of the week, and we've been actually devastated the whole time, in my opinion, by the fires of California. I can't honestly, Mitra, I can't stop
Yeah.
thinking about it. I can't stop watching it. I can't
Yeah.
stop thinking how absolutely horrible it is. I've lived through fires when they happened in Greece when I was there.
Yeah.
It is extremely scary. And with these Santa Ana winds, it just changes course and no one has a
That's it.
chance. I don't know how um, you've been monitoring it.
Honestly, we have family members there. First of all, let me apologize about my background because we're doing remodeling and construction. So let me apologize for that. Um, we have family and very good friends, and we're in contact with them all the time. And I think there's a lot of anger. What happened to the water? Did they overbuild? So now you're beginning to see little by little, why there wasn't enough water, why it was allowed to, build so many homes. But when you saw that, you couldn't help but feel sorry for people because, in a way, it's not just the wealthy billionaire, actors that they keep showing on TV. There's a lot of people who was their first home, who are barely making ends meet, who their job is gone. So, and I do like my mom says, I don't want misfortune on anyone. But honestly, it was something horrific. And I'm going to do something else. When you read the international press, particularly from Asia and Middle East and the MENA region, there is astonishment. What is going on in the United States? California was the sixth largest economy in the world.
It still is, yeah. But I
It
know what you're
still
saying.
is. Is it
Yeah.
six or seven, whatever it is? How did you get here? And I think the political ramification will be huge. I think we've been saying it for a long time now that I think by the next presidential election, California will be Republican. I think this will have a major impact on the voting in 2026 and then eventually 2028.
Well, let me put my 2 cents in. I think
Yeah,
that first of all, regardless, I mean, I don't think we should
yeah.
politicize what's happening in California
No, no,
because
no one does. I'm just
but
saying
I
that's,
think but I think that you know it's easy to say, oh, where's the water in the hydrants and
yeah,
where's this and that. I mean, have we ever thought about managing our climate better? I mean, California is
absolutely.
quote unquote a blue state, and they have
Yes,
done pretty well considering taking care of climate issues. But when you've got no water and you've got
yes,
drought and you've
yes.
got winds and some idiots was what happens often in Greece is you're sitting out there, the wind is blowing, you're smoking
Smoking
a
and then
cigarette,
poof.
you throw it out, and that's over. and
Yes.
and I don't understand. Also, there was at the end they were picking up people for arson. I mean, are people
Yeah,
cuckoo? I mean,
and
honestly.
looting and
And loot. Oh
looting.
yeah, the looting. Don't even start me on
I
the
mean,
looting. I mean, don't even
uh,
start me on the looting. But I think the priority for me is the climate issue. If you have no water,
yes,
no matter what. I mean, you can take it what's happening in California to parts
absolutely.
of Africa that have huge drought, to parts of Latin
Middle East.
America. Look at Brazil. The farmers in
Yeah,
Brazil are going crazy because there's no rain. I mean, we're
absolutely.
lucky in Florida because we
Yes.
have torrential
Plenty of water.
rains and then we have
Yeah.
sunshine. We have tornadoes, etc. But it's different. But I think climate issue is huge. And I think that what people are seeing now is, and we'll talk about the political bits in a second. I
Yeah.
think that the issues regarding no water and winds and dry, crackling forests are just
Right.
go through everything. Now, let's take it to the political side because I think that's important too. If I'm a Californian and my mayor is having a good
Yeah.
time in Ghana, I'm like, bitch, you're out of there. You're not going to be
What's
reelected.
she
And I
doing?
bet you
Yeah.
Karen Bass will not be reelected. That I will
No.
put
If
money
she's
to
not
that.
overthrown, if she's not
She's not
overthrown already,
overthrow,
if she's not overthrown,
overthrow her.
like
That's the
overthrow the
word.
chick, right? I agree. I
Terrible.
think first of all, climate is extremely important, and that's why when the world was watching, particularly from Africa and Middle East, not that they were happy this happened. Of course not.
Of course
Everybody's
not.
sad, but what they were saying is now you know what's going on in our
Exactly. How you
neighborhood.
know what we feel. and what
Now
we
you know
went
what
through.
we feel. And they were saying, look, you can't, when it comes to Middle East, you can't drink oil. You
Right.
can't drink, yeah. So, yeah. So this is a huge message, not just for the
Absolutely.
people of California, but the world. You have
Absolutely.
droughts in Middle East. It used to, you have droughts in Africa. I'm just for a brief moment, when I was younger, obviously a couple of decades ago, when you go to Iran, you would have so much snow that
Hmm.
you couldn't even come out of the house. Now, because they overbuilt in the village and everybody did whatever they wanted, you barely get snow twice a year in an
Yeah.
area that's supposed to be built all the time,
Yeah.
snowing all the time. So climate is a massive, massive issue. I don't care how powerful you are. I don't care if you're UAE trying to bring rain, right? Remember they do that thing in the rain and came out?
That was that was in one way that was crazy. On another way, I was like, wow. I mean, I'm
Right.
sorry. I was kind of impressed in a way.
Well, the problem with that is you're messing with things you're not supposed
Of
to.
course. Of course.
And that
Well,
happens. And now you have
that
in Saudi
happens
Arabia.
everywhere.
Right. No, no. But, Mother Nature doesn't like to be
No,
touched,
no. Agree.
And look at what
Agree.
happened in Saudi Arabia. It was
Yeah.
pouring rain in
They
Mecca.
they had a year's worth of rain in a day or something like that.
Right. So
Something
that's not
absurd.
normal.
No.
That's not normal. People were saying, thank God we have water. But Saudi Arabia isn't built to handle,
Exactly. But let
you
me
know,
take you back for a second because you made a good point about the wealthy.
right.
Now, a friend of mine who lives in Germany was telling me that, and I haven't seen it because I'm not in Germany right
Right.
now. The majority of information and videos, et cetera, that are being shown in Germany, it may have
Yeah.
changed by now, regarding the fires in California, were all the stars' homes, not the quote unquote local people, which
Right.
is insanity. Who the cares?
Here.
I mean, I'm sorry if Paris
Yeah.
Hilton's house burned down, but she's just one of many. Um,
Right.
I think what's interesting though, and
Mhm.
maybe this is kind of mean to say, but no matter how wealthy and no matter how big your house is, Mother
Yeah.
Nature can take you out. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but isn't
This is
that
the
interesting
lesson.
about
When you
the
get
yeah, isn't that interesting about just showing the stars homes being
No, no, that's
demolished?
always been like that. If it's interesting because I follow social media, I go to all these things to have an idea of what's going on.
Right.
And people were saying, stop showing about a celebrity lost a $10 million home. You
Right.
had like James Woods crying that I lost my home. They're like, people are dying. So they
Exactly.
were trying to fundraise for the less fortunate, and they're having a difficult time. They're like, we're not giving money to the celebrities. And you're like, it isn't about the celebrities. It's about the dishwasher guy. It's about the lady who cleans the
Exactly.
floor. It's the one who lost her job at school.
Right.
Lots of people lost money, and that's what people don't get. Yes, Malibu were the multimillionaires, but even they lost money because I believe the insurance said maximum you can get, I could be wrong, is 3 million. And some of these homes were 10 million, 12 million,
Well,
15
talk
million.
about the insurance companies. Why is it a month or 2 months ago, all these insurance companies decided to hightail it out and no longer provide insurance for fire? That's
Insurance.
odd. That's odd to me.
Right. It's like
And this is
Florida.
what's happened. It's like Florida.
Right. You're not the first one who said that.
Hmm.
You're not the first one who said that. They're like 2 months ago, they pull out and now you have a fire. Right. Wow. Okay. So it's like Florida. But this also has brought the question into, should there be a national insurance? You have FEMA. I
Yeah.
get it. But should there be a national insurance where the US government will say to the insurance company, we'll back you up like 40%. So at least stay there. Right.
Right.
And the argument is, if you're going to give away $500 billion to
Right.
foreign aid every year,
Right. Right.
then you could afford to have
Absolutely right.
homes
Absolutely
because
right.
you need to rebuild, and not everyone has the money to rebuild. So rather than giving 200 billion to Israel, 200 billion to Guatemala, I know we're not giving 200
Yeah.
billion
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Guatemala.
I
I'm
know what
just,
you're saying.
I'm just making a point. Why don't you limit that and give the money internally back up the insurance? And I think if President Trump comes up with a system like that, that says, okay, we need the money from somewhere, but we're going to invest it inside. We're going to bring the insurance prices down in Florida. We're going to bring the insurance down prices in California, in Texas, all of these places. And we're going to say, have the government back you up at least 40%. I think those insurance companies will stay,
The thing
will
is,
stay.
the problem we have now is something has to be done because the
Mm,
climate issues are not going away. So
right.
we will have more fires and we will have more tornadoes and we will have more hurricanes, et cetera, et cetera. So something has to be done. And I know from people in Florida, they're like, I'm not buying insurance because it makes no sense to buy insurance. First of all, it's
They can't
extremely
afford it.
expensive. And second of all, who really gets the money back at the end of the day? So
You
thank
don't
God
get
we
it. You
have
don't get it
FEMA.
back.
You don't get it back.
You don't get it back.
So
Hurricanes, a lot of people didn't get it back.
no,
They don't.
exactly.
I will tell you, I have wealthy friends, but 80% of them do not have insurance.
No,
The
because
ones in
it's
the
cheaper
apartments,
to
they're like,
rebuild. I mean, I'm not
right,
trying to
they're like,
sound
I'm not
weird,
even
but
going to, even in the apartments, they're like, we're not going to get flood insurance. What for? They're
yeah,
never going to pay us back. And
right,
because you pay like $2,000 a month, they're like, that's
right,
crazy.
right.
If you're lucky, 2,000 a month.
Okay, so we've covered that a little bit. I think I'd like to move on.
Yeah,
Let's see what happens
yeah,
politically because I think Newsom is on the line. I think Bass
yeah.
is on the line. Somebody's got to come up and
So
do something. You can't just say, "Whoops, sorry about that." So let's see what
I
happens
think
on
heads
that.
have to roll. Heads have to roll.
I'm sure
They
the
have to
mayor is
roll.
gone. I'm sure the mayor is finished. And
It's got to be more
I
than
like
that.
your idea about, overthrow her. I think they should just take the pitchforks and go to
This is
her house and
just
say,
go,
"You're
right?
out of here.
So,
Don't go back to Ghana because we don't want you here anymore."
I
That
don't
was
know
just
what is the
crazy.
mayor of Los Angeles doing in Ghana and
Yeah.
who's paying for that? Who's paying for that?
Well,
I'm curious.
they all go and do
Yeah.
goodwill, blah blah, whatever. I know. We're always paying for
What
all
does
this.
Los Angeles have to do with Ghana? I mean,
It's
whatever, whatever.
what do you want? Well, come on.
You know,
Nancy Pelosi just
what,
broke her hip, and where was
hips.
she?
What is she doing there? She's leaving anyway.
No, she's not leaving. She's still around. Anyway, okay, let's
I know,
move
but I
on.
think this is her last year.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's move on. Uh, let's talk shortly for let's spend 3 minutes on Trump hush money case, finding him quote
Yeah,
unquote guilty and moving it along. Um,
yeah,
your opinion on that?
right. Move on. I
Yeah.
think whether you like Trump or not, most people agree this was a vengeful pay. Of all the things you went after, this was it that he paid, excuse me, some hooker. Okay, that's between him and his wife. Move on. Move on. I think this was more of a revenge. I'm going to get something on Donald Trump. I'm going to dirty his name. But move on. The people voted for the guy knowing all of this. It's
Right.
irrelevant. Move on. Don't waste your time even doing that.
Okay, but it's interesting. I agree with you. It's interesting that they got him on this stupidity, which is fine. He broke the law, fine. But the point is that, in my opinion, January 6th was much bigger. Georgia was much bigger. But then you've got all
Yeah.
these issues with Alvin Bragg and the young lady, mingling together. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want to say anything rude about anybody in Georgia or wherever
Yeah,
or New
exactly.
York or
But this
whatever.
was
But
stupid, and that's the
hello,
only thing. Yeah,
are you that stupid? I mean,
yeah,
sorry, are you that
yeah.
stupid to mess everything up that you worked so hard to do for an affair? Seriously? Anyway,
Well, yeah. Moving on.
move
Exactly.
on. We're moving
Move
on.
on.
19th of January is the date that America will decide the quote unquote future of TikTok because
Yeah,
they want it arranged and finalized before the 20th
yeah.
when Trump takes office. What will happen? What's going to happen to TikTok? So funny we're talking about
For
TikTok.
me, I don't know, and you and I disagree because I say we are doing what we accuse China or Iran or other countries of doing with Facebook. They don't want our stuff because they're like, it's this spell, is this stabilizing our nation? It's used as the propaganda. It's used against our people. We're like, no, you have to have it, and they blocked it. They have blocked it. Now the U.S. has turned around and said, well, that's how we feel about TikTok. It's used to instabilize. It's used to create a dumbing of America. Basically, the same argument they used against us. Now, you and I disagree with that, which is fine. To me, that's what's the most fascinating part of it. But whether it stays or not, I think the damage is done because it does show us as a hypocrite, even though you may disagree. But for me, the question becomes, as you recommended, what happened if somebody buys TikTok? Would that be okay then? Or let's say there's another TikTok by China. I don't think China was just waiting for this. I have a feeling the Chinese are coming up with something similar, but maybe not Chinese owned. Maybe it's owned by a company in, let's say, Korea, that's owned by someone in Japan, that's owned by someone that, I don't know, in Costa Rica, and it goes back to China. I don't think the Chinese are the type of a nation that just wait till the last minute. So, but I am curious what happens when they say, okay, does that shut it down? Does that mean it becomes illegal to watch TikTok? Because you still could have TikTok. TikTok is not going anywhere. Does that mean we're going to need a special thing to go in? Are we going to behave like the Chinese or the Iranians or the Russians when they want to watch Facebook? Are we going to use a special VPN? Because TikTok is not going anywhere. It's just not in the US, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Well, there's a few things that are different. So I'm going to take you back to the phone manufacturing company Huawei.
Yes.
Huawei.
Yes, I think you said it correctly.
Right. Yeah.
I think so. You said it correctly.
So you can buy these phones all over Europe. They have them in Greece, etc. In Greece, they also have what's called WeChat, which is the Chinese version of our WhatsApp.
Right.
And it's very popular in Southern Europe. Everybody has WeChat. A lot of people don't have WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever. And what's interesting is that America said no to Huawei. You could not sell those phones in America because they were all listening or spying devices or whatever you want to call it. From China. And it's, I agree with that. There's something in that phone that can pick up all your data and whatever and whatever.
I understand.
So that's been banned.
Right.
So nobody in the world made a big hoopla about not having this phone company in America. But now everybody is in an uproar for having, this whole thing with TikTok. Now, TikTok has been proven, again, what do I know?
I understand.
A little nobody with a computer here, but they say
I wouldn't go that far.
They say that the TikTok, when it's on your phone, there's this humongous, like Apple, like Facebook, like Meta, like any Google, like anything else. There's like 20 pages long of the stipulations of the thing that you scroll down and say,
you have to
say. And one of the things you agree to is that they can take your data. So my question is, hold on a second, I have to pause. So you have this thing with Hawaii was not allowed to be in America, and nobody made a big uproar about it. But you have the US government sitting down and having discussions after discussions about what to do with TikTok. And the question for me now is exactly like you said. Is somebody going to buy it and manage all the data on there? Is it still going to be allowed to be used in Asia or around the world? Is it just going to be discontinued because you make a lot of people upset because there's a lot of subscribers? Is Musk going to buy it and create a Twitter? Because I think he was talking before about X now going to be a video platform app. So if that happens, it just makes sense to me in a way that TikTok merges into that. So he could in essence, buy TikTok, merge it into X, create a video platform, call it X, and just be done with the whole word TikTok.
It could be, but the problem becomes, I think, the businesses. They have a thing called Book Talk, where all the book groups they use TikTok to sell, to communicate. And so there was an interesting article on USA Today about that. And they were saying, where are we going to go, right? Are we going to go to Instagram? Okay, but it's not the same thing. So I think the financial ramification for me, it's interesting. What's going to happen to all those people that use TikTok to get their business? Are they just going to go to Instagram? Absolutely. But I think it's just different. I think a lot of people will be affected by that initially. But eventually, for me, the question becomes, it's banned in the US, but it's not banned in France. It's not banned in Japan. It's not banned in Turkey, in Korea.
What's banned in US?
So it'd be interesting to see.
What's
TikTok, if it's going to be TikTok, I'm saying it's.
But no, I don't think so, because X is worldwide. So if Musk takes it over.
No, if Musk, yes, I understand. But I mean, right now, let's say the Supreme Court comes in and says, no. Okay, that's it. You have to go. So what does that even mean? Because you can have TikTok in France and you can get your VPN and use your TikTok in France. So does that mean now the companies that use TikTok, is the government going to go after those American companies that are here and use TikTok to sell? You're
No, but
opening up a whole
you're
can of
misunderstanding
worms.
the point. You're misunderstanding the point. If they decide to sell
If,
TikTok, okay,
yes.
and it still is TikTok, but it's just under another management, and it's called something else, and everybody
No,
can
but supposedly
sell
they
their
don't want
wares
to.
on it. Pardon me?
They don't want to.
Who doesn't
Supposedly
want
China
to?
says, I'm not going to sell. I don't want to, but I'm going to keep it in Europe. Because remember, it's banned in the US, correct? But it's not going to
banned
be.
in the US. It's not banned in the US at all.
No, but they have to sell it by a certain date. In other words, if the Supreme Court says, listen, if the Supreme
no, excuse me, that is incorrect. There must be a decision made by the 19th of January what to do with TikTok.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So what is the US government asking? Think for yourself. What is the US government asking the Supreme Court? What is he asking the Supreme Court? Answer. What is the US asking about the Supreme Court?
To make a decision about TikTok, whether to allow it to stay in America as is, whether
Yes.
it should be sold to an American entity, whether it should be banned 100% and just discontinued in America, et
Right.
cetera,
I understand. So either it's going, let's say the Supreme Court says it's got to be banned, right? For example, it's banned here, but it's not banned around the world. So now you're opening up a whole can of worms. So if people use it, does that mean you're going to come after those companies that use it? They don't have the manpower for that.
No,
but if they say you have to sell it to an American company, well, what is the timeline? 1 year. What happens if they don't sell it in 1 year? Does that mean that you have more time? Does that mean they're going to come after you after 1 year? So I think it's an extremely complicated case. It's going to open up a whole can of worms for average Joe Schmoes who have a little companies and trying to get big. We're not talking about multinational corporations. We're talking about a little individuals. And remember, a lot of people became famous in TikTok. All these, what do they call it? Influencers, right? Do this and do that. So it'll be fascinating to me to see what happens, January 19th.
Yeah,
it'd be fascinating to see what happens January 19th. I mean,
what will be more fascinating, Mitra, what will be more fascinating to me is with whatever happens on January 19th regarding TikTok will have an impact on all future applications that are currently, quote unquote, reading your information or listening to your information or whatever else.
Absolutely.
What
I think that
say is that if TikTok is disallowed and Apple is listening to me and Siri is listening to me and Alexa is listening to me, et cetera, what's the difference?
Exactly. And that is their argument. Because remember what's happening. Series, I never use series really. I don't. And I just, I do it even though my kids are like, series, what's the answer to this? I'm like, oh, for God's sake, future of America. Oh, come on. Use at least do a little research. It is important. And honestly, to me, it's fascinating. And so what I see right now is a system that people are watching, but we opened up a whole can of worms. And I don't think we're ready for the answer for that. I really don't think we're ready for the answer for that. I think some things you should have just left it alone and do it a different manner, right? And comes January 19th, and okay, is that the first thing the president is going to do, go after it, ban it? I mean, you have the immigration issue, you have the economy, you have the war. Is this where it's going to go at? I don't know. But I think for people, it's fascinating. The great United States doing this. A country you can have whatever you want.
Yeah, let's see.
To me, that was
you
even
can
more.
have everything you want, but you can't have the Chinese listening in.
But you have everybody else listening to you.
Exactly.
Right? You have everybody else listening to you.
But at least it's Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg and not,
Well, speaking of, right, but look at Mr. Mark Zuckerberg. Look what he did. He changed the Meta. That's huge because he was getting pushback because, there were a lot of people complaining on Instagram, on a little bit on Facebook, on even Twitter saying, look, we were saying things that you don't like and you shut it off. For example, when it came to the Palestinian issue, you didn't allow us to use these words. You banned us just because you didn't like what we say. So for me, what Zuckerberg did was important. It was very important because he came up and basically said, okay, I'm going back to the old ways. You
Well,
can say whatever you
did
want.
now you have to be a little bit careful there because what he did was he stopped the fact checkers. That means that now I can write in Facebook, um,
Yeah,
you know, I weigh 300 pounds and I'm this and that, and no one's going to fact check it and just going to accept it. That's the danger
right.
of what Meta did. That's the danger,
But you
not
know,
just
it's
because.
interesting because how many years has the fact checking been in? For how long? How old is Facebook? 10 years, 15 years? I don't even recall
Well,
anymore.
fact
So
checking has been in
fact
more.
checking, I think, yeah, it's been some time. I don't know about how long the fact checking has been. My point becomes is that now now it's no longer just about fact checking. It's also about what you want to say. People need to understand that he went a little bit above that. He went a little bit above the fact checking as well. So now we are going to have a system, and that's why you have to be careful. How many times you and I had this discussion? Just because it's on the web doesn't mean it's true.
Well, the
You know,
problem is,
people,
Mitra, the
you
problem,
know,
Mitra, will be is that if nobody, whoever those fact checkers are, if nobody is putting up any barriers and saying this is incorrect or then you're going to read something, young kids will just read something and accept it as the gospel truth. And
but
that's the
that, but
huge
they already
problem.
have that. Honestly, Vicky, come on. That's why you have all these things with social influencers. How many fact checkers do you think, you know, Facebook or Instagram has? Right? If you did, you wouldn't have all of these cockamamie stories on Instagram. You have all these little reels on Instagram. We did a coup here. We did this. Half of them are lies. But you have to have
Yeah.
intelligence to say that. To say,
Well, let's
okay, this
see. Yeah,
this is
but
a
now,
different world now.
but
This is a completely different
now
world.
it's the wild, wild west of
Right.
of the
This
web.
that made us the power that we are. This, the information, not the phone, the information we use to spread our ideology, our belief, our system, particularly during the political events towards another country. Now it's being used to against us. Now we are going to be torn by the very entity that we have to create.
That is
So
true.
it'll be fascinating to see. So he's done that. Let's see what happens with TikTok,
Yeah.
right? Let's see what happens with TikTok. Then I think, um, but this country, again, we are facing certain amount of economic, forget about military, political crisis that I think we need to concentrate at home.
All right, let's
We
leave it at
need,
that. Let's
you
leave
know,
it at
at
that.
that. Absolutely.
Next podcast we have two special guests, and we're going to be talking about um, the influence, the status, the perhaps the future of Western Europe and Russia and Asia, which is going to be fascinating. And we have two special guests that we were going to have a debate and discussion on. Excuse me. So that will be a really, really interesting podcast for next week. So right now, let's leave it with TikTok. Let's
Right.
pray for the people in California, the
Amen.
firemen, etc.
Amen.
And uh, and we'll talk again next week. Thank you, Mitra.
Cause you're a sky